your Saturday morning source for everything Huskers.
Raiola takes a snap, fade route, back run of the end zone, 50-50 ball! Touchdown, Huskers!
Nebraska wins its 5th national championship.
Giving you an inside look at everything going on in Husker Nation. This is the KLIN Husker Hour.
Kicks and deals the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike 3. Jackson Brockett has the first 9-inning no-hitter for the Nebraska Cornhuskers since 1954, and he did it on his 12th strikeout.
Sunset, got it! Underdog, and then one! Exclamation point! Pump the brakes!
Now your hosts, KLIN contributor Cole Stukenholtz and sports director Nate Rohr.
Good Saturday morning. Welcome to another edition of the KLIN Husker Hour. Another Husker Saturday here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Nebraska taking on Michigan State 5 hours from now. 6 hours from now. 5 hours when the game's over, when the show's over. Let's start that again. Good Saturday morning, Nate.
Good Saturday morning, Cole.
We got Kenny Larrabee with us as well. He's got us up on the StreamYard. Check out the KLIN socials, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We're on the Husker Hour Facebook page as well. We're going to have Luke Mullin from the Lincoln Journal-Star alongside here shortly to talk about this matchup with the Spartans. It's going to be it's a big spread. I don't know that Nebraska is going to be covering that, but I think folks should probably be confident in Nebraska's ability to win this game. We'll break down the matchup, but I can't go any further, Nate, without hitting this first. Sometimes in life, you're the bug and someone else is the windshield. Sometimes you're the nail and the other person is the hammer. And then sometimes you are the nuclear test site and somebody is dropping an absolute giant atomic bomb right on your head, and there is nothing you can do about it. And that is what Nebraska did to Penn State volleyball in their own house. My goodness. Only 6 points in that first set.
Yeah, I mean, the other two sets are 15 and 13, and you would go, whoa, that's a whooping. 25-6. 25-6. They won 6. And here's the other part, Cole, and I was thinking about this morning. Penn State was up 2-0. Nebraska won 25 of the final 29 rallies in set 1. I mean, I don't know that you can do that against air, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know that you can do that against traffic cones. I mean, you're going to hit shots out. You're going to serve long. You're going to, just miss, hit it, an inch out of bounds or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. And I mean, let's be clear. That's Nebraska playing at their virtual best and Penn State playing at their virtual worst. And Nebraska, is really, really good. And Penn State is very mixed up. And there's so many problems there. Whoa. I mean, this is a level of dominance that we don't see ever. And it's coming from this team that has so well maintained its competitive stamina and just wanted to do more and do it better and do it more consistently. That's the stuff that wins you national championships. Now, the question is, how long can they sustain this level? Because, I mean, it's pretty clear they can handle whatever on the floor. Yeah. I mean, this is not a team where you look at a glaring weakness or, they're missing this. I mean, Adriano's stepped up as an opposite side hitter. Rebecca Alex playing her best volleyball right now. Yeah. Not to say she was ever a slouch. You're getting great contributions from Murray and Jackson, and Bergen Riley's setting at the top of her game. The biggest challenge is how long can you sustain this? Because if you can sustain this is a national championship team. That's just the way it is. And even though Penn State is messed up right now, they are really messed up right now. The fact of the matter is that This is still a program with talent, still a program with pride. I was surprised how juiced that atmosphere stayed. I mean, at 25-6, you got to be sitting there thinking, okay, this thing's over. Maybe I'm sizing up which establishment downtown I'm going to go to after the game. There's still a little juice in that arena, or at least that's the way it sounded. Maybe they had the Penn State student section especially mic'd.
Yeah.
But it was a different level last night. I mean, those programs they've played really well this year. They've had a great season thus far. They went to somewhere else last night. It was we are going to tell them that they don't belong in the same arena as us, and that was the message I got from last night.
Yeah, some of the fun stats. So that first set, Nebraska's hitting percentage .583, Penn State -143.
Yeah.
They had two players who were positive on their hitting percentage all night. And one of them was the highest profile transfer, one of the best players in the country, in Kennedy Martin.
Right.
And then the other one was a former Husker,
Yep.
Maggie Mendelson.
Yep.
Carolyn Jervicius, not a good night for her. And I mean, 1 hour and 18 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I turned off the TV broadcast. The kids, I turned it, I was watching the match, and the kids were watching something else. What'd they do for the other 42 minutes?
There are Bluey episodes longer than that match lasted.
Yeah, no kidding.
Insane.
It was total domination and just one team saying, we are way better than you, and we're going to prove it for 3 sets with no let up. And so that was astonishing to me. Just, I mean, 25-6 is 25-6. That's incredible dominance. It would be very easy to tap the brakes and go, okay, we can kind of halfway this thing. I mean, 25-15 is really good.
Yeah.
25-13 is really good. And so I guess the last challenge that this Penn State match, I'm not going to say Penn State will present, is how quickly can Nebraska file this away, take the confidence from it they need, but avoid the rat poison from it.
Yeah.
And go, you know what? That was great, but Rutgers is nothing right now. And we should have maybe not that easy of a time with them, but we should have a pretty easy time with them.
Yeah.
And let's get it done. Let's play at a high level. It's to borrow from football, the nameless, faceless opponent. Who cares about the other guys on the other side of the net? How well can you play? And that sort of mental challenge and focus is what can sustain you for a whole season. You're going to have nights like last night where there's palpable anger at the other team. I mean, they ended your season. They ended John Cook's coaching career without a national championship. You got beef with them. So take it out on them. Great. Glad you did. But and that's where you're going to take that last step to full dominance. But what's going to sustain a very good level of play is focusing on yourself. How well can we play this game in front of us? And so we'll see how much they lock into that tonight. I don't think they'll have any problem doing that, but it is I would argue the biggest challenge that faces them right now.
Okay, I lied. I have one more fun stat. So per Nebraska Sports Information, going back to the beginning of the rally scoring era, which is 2001. So this is 25 years we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
This is the second lowest hitting percentage by a Nebraska opponent. Like every team they played in 25 years, only one had a lower hitting percentage. It was Louisiana Monroe in 2013. They actually had a set where they scored 21 points. They went 11-21. Now set 3 was 25-4. Don't get me wrong. But they hit 132.
Yeah.
Or negative 132. Penn State hit negative 114.
Yeah.
Incredible. So yeah, you said it right. The way that they get up for these big matches, you saw what they did to Stanford. This one obviously is going to be living in the minds of opponents for a while. you know that they can get up. It's the question of how can they sustain it across, some of the not as bloodthirsty opponents that you may have, the opponents that you're out for revenge on. And so that's the challenge. And Rutgers is the first one. That's later tonight. That's a 6:00 first serve. You will hear that over on B107.3. And look, the way that Nebraska's playing, they're able to get a lot of different players integrated into the matches. Danny's done a really good job, I think, of finding spots to insert some of the lesser, some of the girls who haven't had as much playing time and
Sure.
won't have as much crunch time playing time. But you never know when you might need a clutch serve, or you might have somebody tweak an ankle or something. You got to get somebody out there. She's got such incredible depth with this roster that it's built for handling just about any situation.
Yeah.
And they're going to come across some trouble. I mean, they've been in 5-setters this year and they've come out on the other end, but they're not to the big matches yet in terms of, playing for a Big Ten title, looking at the NCAA tournament, Final Four championship. That's where it's really going to come down to it. But she's done a really good job to work in a lot of different players and build a lot of that depth that you're going to see later in the season.
And that has so many lasting effects for your team. For starters, it gets people like Campbell Flynn, started in their career and figuring out how to play college volleyball. The other thing it does is it saves wear and tear on your frontline players, to where, that's one less swing Harper Murray has to make. That's one less time Bergen Riley has to hustle into position to get a good set off. And so those are sets that you are saving for late December when you're going to need them. They didn't need much out of, Harper Murray only had, I think, 6 kills, and not to say she played poorly. She had an okay hitting percentage, but when you're able to get players out of games, and we saw this all the time in the glory days in Nebraska football, that when you're able to get your frontline players out of games, you're able to get experience for those younger players, so they're better prepared to step in and excel for you once your players graduate. And it's also just fewer reps that elite player has to take. Yep. And so that's one more 100% rep they've got for December when you need it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to begrudge any Nebraska player from having low counting stats. It's just tough to do when you don't have very many rallies.
Yeah, isn't it something? They added 17 players to the National Player of the Week or the National Player of the Year list.
The watch list, yeah.
And Rebecca Alec was one of them. So, Nebraska has, 4?
I think they had 4 to start the season.
Okay, so they have 5 National Player of the Year candidates. They're just going to take stats away from each other, but like the phrase that Danny Busby Kelly coined, it's about banners, not names on the wall. And this team looks like they're going to hang a couple very big banners.
Yeah, we can't wait to see how it all shakes out. It will come down soon enough as Nebraska continues their undefeated run. They're still number 1 in the country, and they take on Rutgers later tonight. You'll be able to listen to that one over on B107.3, 6:00 first serve. That'll be right when Nebraska-Michigan State football is finishing up, and we'll transition to that when we come back. Luke Mullin will join the conversation from the Lincoln Journal-Star. Nate and I will have a full breakdown of that matchup as we roll on here on your Saturday morning. It's the KLIN Husker Hour on 99.3 and 1400 KLIN.
Hey, this is Krista, your go-to gal for all your catering needs at Da Vinci's. From graduations to birthdays, office lunches to holiday parties, we cater for every occasion under the sun. We've got the menu and the expertise to accommodate 15 to 1,000 guests. There's combo and gourmet pizzas, baked pastas, box lunches, hoagie trays, salads, cookies, and so much more. Check out our drop-and-go catering menu at davincis.com. That's davincis.com.
Find easy ways to store your outdoor tools and accessories at Menards. Suncast storage sheds are the perfect solution for organization and protection. Their double wall construction offers strength and durability with easy assembly that will save you time. Pick up an in-stock Suncast storage shed today or visit Menards.com to check out more of our great deals going on now at Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
For over 80 years, Farm Bureau.
A complete review of the Huskers news this week. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3.
Less than 6 hours from now, it'll be Nebraska-Michigan State over at Memorial Stadium. The Huskers have a chance to get that bad taste of that Michigan game out of their mouth and pick up a Big Ten win, and they'll have a chance to do it today. And here to chat with us about it is Luke Mullin from the Lincoln Journal-Star. Hello, Luke. How are we doing this morning?
Doing great, guys. How about you?
Morning, Luke.
Doing well. Based on what players and coaches have been saying over these past couple weeks after that Michigan loss, what has this team been focused on leading up to this matchup with the Spartans?
Yeah, honestly, it's been a lot of the same stuff I'm sure that fans have been talking about, you guys have been speaking about since that Michigan game, of course. The run defense, that's been the big thing. And, I think a lot of it was not necessarily schematic, but, when you see the games, they were doing a lot of stunting up front with the defensive line. They've been experimenting, I suppose, a little bit with those secondary rotations. They're very different against Michigan than they were in the first 3 games of the season. So, obviously there were some other minor things, but if you look big picture at that run defense this last week, it was all about, hey, are the things that we're doing up there successful? What are the areas, the approaches that maybe could change during the game? Of course, they've looked at personnel too. And, it's hard to say that that's going to be a lot different, after 4 weeks into the season. It's going to be a lot of the same guys, but I think they're going to look at, hey, are there different areas in the game, different packages that we can use? And what are the schematic ways that they can fix up that ailing run defense?
Luke, as I look back on that Michigan game and as I've looked at this team, it's felt like there are 3 persistent problems. That maybe there's more, and maybe you'll dispute this list, but it seems like they can't generate it, or they haven't been able to generate a pass rush yet. They haven't been able to stop the run, and they struggle in the red zone on offense. Which of those 3 problems feels the most fixable?
I think it's the pass rush, because they've been good at moments, and I totally think you're correct. Like third downs, like key snaps, the pass rush has not been good enough. But what has been the bigger issue is those quarterback runs, and of course it's not been every opponent. Cincinnati and Michigan were different than the 2 other non-cons, but sealing the edge, that's been such an issue for this team. In that defensive line. And they've also, in that run game too, when they're running in the interior, they've been knocked back too. But I think for the most part, those defensive ends, Williams won Airy. They've used Hassan McCullough, of course, at DN quite a lot, and Cam Lenhart's gotten some time there. I think those three guys have been really solid. Yes, you're totally correct that the pass rush output, the sacks, they have not quite been there. But I think, teams have been trying to get the ball out quick. They've been running it. They see the weaknesses, of course, that you've mentioned, Nate, that show up there on film. And to me, I think that pass rush could be better just if the quarterbacks hang out in the pocket a little bit longer. But to me, the run defense, that's the big one that we really need to see those improvements in.
Luke Mullin joining us from the Lincoln Journal-Star here, chatting about Michigan State versus Nebraska coming up at 3:00 here on KLIN. You mentioned how the rankings have shaken out and what Nebraska's done so far this year. How much stock are we really able to put into some of these national rankings, having only played 4 games and also 2 of those being just giant mismatches?
Yeah, definitely. When you look at how good the passing offense has been, I feel like that's definitely inflated. But in terms of, the nation's best, passing defense that's less than 100 yards a game, I mean, yes, totally Akron and Houston Christian's lack of a passing offense. Cincinnati didn't want to throw it either. But hey, if you're a third of the way into the season, I mean, the tape tells the story as it is. This is an excellent secondary that plays man-to-man coverage at a super high level. Teams try to throw it 1-on-1 and rarely come away successful from it. But on the flip side, hey, if you're going to run it, 40, 45 times a game and having success with it, of course, that's a winning formula. So yes, definitely it is a little misleading. They are going to play some better offenses that'll change up that pass defense, how successful they've been. And on offense too, there's going to be days where, Dylan Raiola doesn't throw for 300 yards, where it's going to be a more run heavy game plan. But I do think when we look at this, at the end of the season, we're going to see very similar things. This is a pass heavy team on offense. The secondary is the strong suit on defense. And frankly, I don't think that's going to change.
I said this team had 3 big problems. I'll add one more to the list: protecting Dylan Raiola. And to that end, there's been plenty of talk about changing who plays offensive tackle for Nebraska. What's your view of how Nebraska goes about addressing the major issue of protecting Dylan Raiola, especially where the pass offense is the lion's share of how Nebraska is going to move the ball?
Absolutely. Well, I'll say this in terms of Elijah Pritchett, which is, of course, the player that fans are maybe saying, hey, why isn't he out there or whatever. I think the Nebraska coaching staff, they have given him every opportunity to succeed, whether that's in practice or during the game. We've seen this kind of odd, left tackle rotation because they wanted to get Pritchett out there. They wanted to get him reps, get him those snaps. So I will say that's been going on behind the scenes there in practice this week. They've been trying Pritchett out there at that first string left tackle. And again, whether that shows up this week, whether he gets all the snaps, some of the snaps with Gunnar Gatula, we'll still see it because, of course, this coaching staff, they're playing the cards very close to the chest on that one. But in terms of Pritchett and just this offensive tackle situation as a whole, it comes down to consistency. And so I think that's what the Nebraska coaching staff saw. Weeks of practice. They saw Gunnar Gatula. They saw Teddy Prohaska. They saw those guys being consistent in practice, right? Well, you go out on the field and 60 minutes of game film sometimes tells a different story, especially against an excellent opponent like Michigan last week. So I think what they're going to have to do, and same thing I said about defense, evaluating the personnel, the success of them. So I think we do see some more Elijah Pritchett this week. Again, is that the whole game? I don't know. But like I said, they want to give this guy every opportunity. They know how talented he is. And ultimately, if you keep running the same personnel out there, obviously it's been a big issue.
Luke, with the way that the lines played against Michigan, I know folks will be focusing on that offensive line and the defensive line as well. And that's where I want to look at what Nebraska is able to get done, not just statistically, but how they can affect the game. Aiden Childs is going to throw the ball a lot. He's got 9 touchdowns to just 1 interception. They are going to throw a lot more than Michigan did. He's a lot better passer of the football than Underwood was last 2 weeks ago. So in terms of the defensive line, are we anticipating seeing a lot of rotation up there, or are they settled on the guys that they have and that we've seen in the last few games, and is there not going to be a whole lot of change? How would you forecast what we'll see on the defensive front today?
Yeah, I do think we will see a good amount of rotation, maybe even a little bit more than that Michigan game, because honestly, I think they were kind of worried going into that Michigan game. Like, they wanted to keep the personnel really tight. They didn't want to expose guys that they weren't 100% certain about. And we saw that in the snap counts. I mean, very few players played in that Michigan game, both sides of the ball. So I do think you'll get more guys in there, just 5-10 snaps a game, whatever it is, fresh bodies out there, on first and second down. And then you can rotate, the starters back in on third if you need to. But what I will say about Aiden Childs and why that defensive line is so important is he's done a very good job this year at protecting the football on those passing attempts. Last year, he was very erratic as a passer. I mean, he took a lot of risky throws, tight windows, ill-advised passes. So I think Michigan State's done a really good job of cutting that out of their offense this year. But if they generate the pressure, if Nebraska is still as tight in that coverage, I do think that defensive line can cause some trouble for Aiden Childs, most definitely.
Looking at this matchup as a whole, I mean, Michigan could run the football pretty well, and they could pressure the quarterback. That's not good news for Nebraska. Michigan State, not very good at pressuring the quarterback, don't run the ball much. Other than the Aiden Childs run aspect, this is a pretty good matchup for Nebraska to try and get right in a couple of those areas, isn't it?
Definitely. Well, I think, the line, obviously reflects some of the strengths of this team and why Nebraska is considered the heavy favorite, because you would say that this game is trending more towards a pass heavy, offensive based showdown than it is a, Big Ten classic, defense, low scoring, special teams. Like, no, that's not going to play out today. But what will happen for Nebraska is Michigan State, it's their interior defensive line. They've got a 330-pound nose tackle. Nebraska cannot run it straight at them. They need to run it outside the tackles, try to stretch that field for that Michigan State defense, because ultimately that caliber of athlete up front that Michigan had, I mean, don't get me wrong, Michigan State has some good players too, but the way that Michigan was winning every pass rush rep and pushing back the line of scrimmage, it's hard to see that happening again. And again, that's less Nebraska 1 week thing as it is the change in their opponents. So the way that this is going to play out with those passing offenses, I think it does lean into Nebraska's hands, knowing that if Dylan Raiola is going to go back there and chuck the ball around, they'll feel pretty good about the way that things are going to play out.
Luke, not sure where you landed before the season in terms of a record prediction, but has what you've seen in the first 4 games and potentially with Nebraska's opponents down the road changed how you've thought of this season coming in?
Great question. It hasn't changed the record prediction at all. I think most people obviously would have penciled that Michigan game in as a loss. So I think the reaction to that was a little surprising in how fervent people were about, a 3-point loss to a very good team. That said, I totally understand it, because we're seeing the same issues that were there against Cincinnati. If these issues persist, the run defense, pass protection, all the things that you said earlier, Nate, about those weaknesses, like if it's 4 games into the year, it might be 6, 8, 10 games in. So I totally get that people are concerned that, hey, there are these glaring weaknesses that show up on film. But like I said, I think Nebraska has a strong idea of their identity. They know that they're going to go behind Dylan Raiola in this offense. They're confident that this defense will have a lot better games than they did against Michigan. So, to me, it was certainly a setback that impacted the way the season's going to play out, but not the long-term goals at all.
You talk about sort of the 30,000-foot view of this program, where they're going. You look at this month of October, and Nebraska's a double-digit favorite at home today against Michigan State. They are likely to be a favorite at Maryland next week. Probably going to be a favorite in Minneapolis, though the Huskers have had plenty of problems against the Gophers. And then they'll be at least 2-touchdown favorite against Northwestern. How important is it for Nebraska to come through this month undefeated, where it appears that they're going to be the better team on paper for all 4 of those games?
Yeah, it's huge. And, in past years, the November struggles have been really noticeable. And the schedule kind of sets up similarly, some very difficult matchups this November. So when you look at this October as a whole, definitely the opportunity is there for Nebraska to make that statement, build some momentum. But what I would say is Maryland, that could be a tougher game than expected. That Minnesota road game, that's tough too. Like, obviously, and this is something Matt Rule would say, in the Big Ten, no game's easy, right? But when it comes to this week in particular, right, there's the opportunity here for Nebraska to capitulate, to look horrible, right? Fans have seen games that Nebraska should win lose time and time again. And coming off a bye, every opportunity to make improvements. I mean, there's the opportunity for a letdown. But what they do need to do is just be consistent, play their style of football, right? Don't get too emotional. In terms of the on-field product, not too many turnovers, penalties, those kind of things that set a team back. Because as you said, I mean, the opportunity is there for this team to string together a couple wins, and unless that they start off today strong, then it won't happen this month.
Luke, we'll get you out of here on this as we're talking about Michigan State, a team that likes to throw the ball around and doesn't have much of a pass rush. How about your Dallas Cowboys so far this year?
Not good, Cole. Not good.
All right. Well, we'll see you on Thanksgiving. How about that? Me and Nate Chief.
Absolutely. National television, everybody needs the Dallas Cowboys right now.
Oh, yes. The more we can see the Dallas Cowboys on national television, the better the world will be.
I think we need a few more questions to Jerry Jones about Micah Parsons too. Let's keep asking those same questions over and over. All right, we're always happy to ask Luke Mullin some questions from the Lincoln Journal-Star, joining us here on Husker Hour. Luke, thanks a lot for the time, and we'll see you down the road.
Awesome, appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, Luke Mullin. Good stuff as always, and we'll continue to break this matchup down, Nate. But yeah, he doesn't think anything's changed. I don't think anything's changed for us either in terms of our perception. I think October is going to hold a lot of keys to how this thing goes.
Yeah, it's definitely your floor month.
Yeah.
You can bring your floor up to good bowl game, or you can keep the floor into going into November worried if you're going to get to a bowl game.
Yeah. We'll start with game 1 of October, game 5 of the season. We're breaking down the Michigan State-Nebraska matchup right after this, plus an elite facilities move for Nebraska right after this here on the KLIN Husker Hour.
There are 3.
KLIN. Also online at KLIN.com or through the free KLIN app. You can always tell Alexa to play 1499.3 KLIN. So there you go. When you think Huskers.
Fade route, back run of the end zone, 50-50 ball! Touchdown, Huskers!
Think KLIN. Husker football, basketball, baseball, and beyond. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
Thanks, as always, to Luke Mullin of the Lincoln Journal-Star. Just joined the Husker Hour to chat about this Michigan State-Nebraska matchup. If you missed that or any of our shows past, if you caught up late today, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast feed. You go to KLIN.com. You can download and subscribe on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Like us, subscribe to us, and we appreciate you listening any way you do. And then with the matchup today, Nate, I mean, the old adage to win games in the Big Ten, right? It's you got to pass the ball and stop the pass, right? That's
duck and chuck.
That's how you do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a traditional Big Ten matchup between Joe Tiller era Purdue and another Joe Tiller era Purdue game.
To your point though, I mean, you look at the matchup, it is favorable for Nebraska. You have national passing offense against the number 115 passing defense for Michigan State. And they don't have near the athletes up front that Michigan did to challenge Nebraska's edge on the offensive line. It does look like you can have a lot of success on that side of the football today.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this is where Nebraska can succeed and move the ball, and you're hopeful that they're able to bust some stuff down the field early to open things up for the running game, because I think Michigan State would be very tempted to jam things up at the line of scrimmage and force Dylan Raiola to do something he's not done a whole lot of this year, which is complete the ball downfield. But they're probably not going to be able to get to him, and they probably aren't going to be able to cover Nebraska long enough. So I expect Michigan State to throw the kitchen sink at him early, try to blitz him, try to really make his life difficult. If he can handle that, Nebraska will be just fine. And you feel like there's an opportunity for Nebraska to build some offensive rhythm to where hopefully you're able to get the run game going a little better, because that took a step back against Michigan. I mean, Emmett Johnson was under 70 yards, and his limitations were a little more exposed by Michigan. And so when that's the case, his confidence probably isn't where it needs to be. So you need a game to get him back, but to do that, you need to get the pass game to loosen things up.
Right. And look, I've talked about this last 2 shows ago, I guess, when Michigan beat Nebraska, and you're looking at a fourth down decision where you run right into the teeth of the defense with a little shovel pass. You didn't have a whole lot going when you were trying to get in between the tackles. Look, you've got to play to this team's strengths at some point. And I know that Matt Rule and Dana Holgerson know what those are, but you can't necessarily just decide, hey, this is what I want to do. We're gonna run to set up the pass. At this point, you can start to see maybe the offense evolve, and maybe they'll start to do this today. Use that pass game to set up the run.
Yeah,
because the running game is going to be more of your changeup than your fastball.
Yeah.
Your fastball is Dylan Raiola dropping back and picking out the right read and getting rid of that thing. And sometimes you're going to come up against a pass rush that's not going to let them do that, like Michigan, and you have to scheme it up a little bit. They still had some success, but you're not going to see that type of rush a lot more this season, maybe a couple more times is all. So start to get that into your bloodstream, if you will, and use that pass game to set up the run, because it's the strength of this offense. The pass catchers, obviously the trigger man, and the offensive line can start to get into a rhythm that way too, and catch people off guard with that run game.
No doubt. And Dana Holgerson said it. I mean, we're not going to run plays that don't work. Yeah. So at this point, the run game isn't going to be as reliable as you would hope. I think we can stipulate to that. And the other thought is, if the run game's not going to be there near as much as you would hope, you have to do kind of run adjacent things. And to that end, I think Ja'Cory Barney Jr. can be a real weapon, because you can use the little push pass or pop pass where he essentially runs a jet sweep and picks up yardage. You can swing it out to him in the flat. And again, hopefully that unpacks the box a little bit so that you can fake it to him and then get it out to Emmett Johnson. But, Dana Holgerson kind of challenged himself in what he said to the media this week. And he said, I've got to be a little more creative. He was talking about, which is definitely a place where Nebraska needs improvement. But I wonder if there's a kernel of that also goes to offense as a whole, because, it's easy to just say, okay, drop back 40 times, Dylan, and pick out a guy 5 yards down the field. But, there's some of that other stuff that feels like it might be there for this team. And especially the idea that you got to get Ja'Cory Barney Jr. the ball as much as you can. I mean, that guy, no disrespect to Dane Key, no disrespect to Isaiah Hunter or Emmett Johnson. He's the guy that's most explosive with the ball in his hands. So get it to him however you can get it to him. And especially where you don't have a second running back. You need, like I said, run adjacent things to move the ball reliably. And I think Ja'Cory Barney Jr. can do quite a bit of that stuff.
Yeah, he certainly can, and you want to try to put him in places where he's not going to get killed. You maybe send Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter over the middle instead of your smallest guy. But no, you're right. Getting the ball in his hands, I think, is only going to lead to good things. Looking at the other side of the field, and when Nebraska is defending Michigan State, look, we talked a little bit about how the statistics may be a little bit smoke and mirrors with those the Houston Christian and Akron results, but I think Luke is right when he says that pass game defense is legit. Now, 75 yards per game, that's not going to sustain across the rest of the season, but I'm really fascinated to see what happens today. Michigan did not want to throw it a lot, and they kept it on the outside, and they had some drops. Frankly, there was more for them in that game.
Right.
Cincinnati's interesting because Sorsby's had some huge passing numbers after that Nebraska loss, especially last week against Kansas. He threw for almost 400 yards.
Yeah.
Michigan State today is a big test because they run it about as well as Nebraska. Honestly, they only average 10 more yards per game than Nebraska does, but they've done it against better competition. They definitely will challenge downfield. They're going to see if Nebraska's DBs can cover, and if Nebraska's pass rush doesn't get home, that's going to stretch those DBs to maybe a place where they haven't been so far this season. So that part of this matchup is what I'm really looking forward to. Can Nebraska lock these guys down on the perimeter, and can the pass rush, frankly, get home and help make it easier on those DBs to continue to have success?
I think to your first question, can they cover well enough to keep their pass game down? I think so.
Yeah.
The second part of that equation worries me, though, because it just doesn't feel like, and this is, defensive line, both stopping the run and getting a pass rush. You just don't feel like you've gotten much out of them this year.
Yeah.
And Riley Van Poppel's been a disappointment, and Cameron Lenhart has not quite gotten to where you hope he would have been. Elijah Judy played pretty well against Michigan, and so hopefully that forces Michigan State to focus more offensive line attention on him. But for this defense to work, they're going to have to. He's going to have to be that sort of guy that eats up 2 blockers per play. Williams Nwaneri is still a work in progress, which we kind of thought he would be, right? He's a redshirt freshman. I mean, he's got a lot of talent. I think they'll get it from him. He's made some splash plays. It's really been slim pickings as far as splash plays from this defense, and especially this defensive line. And that was not the case last year. I mean, Nash Hutmaker's numbers weren't good, but he did the job, and that opened things up for Ty Robinson to wreak havoc. That opened things up for Jamari Butler to wreak havoc. So I don't know that it's going to come from the 3 guys with their hands on the ground. It's going to come from Dasan McCullough. It's going to come from Shavers. It's going to come from the linebackers, but it'll only come if the defensive linemen do their job and eat up the blockers. And to this point, that's not been the case. And it will also affect things in terms of I think the biggest thing that worries me in this game is not Michigan State's run game. It's not Michigan State passing the ball. It's the scramble and quarterback run game of Aiden Chiles. And if you're really trying to press the pocket, you're going to get out of your rush lanes a little bit. Yeah. And that opens things up. That was the biggest thing that hurt Nebraska against Cincinnati, was Sorsby running the football. So if Nebraska can control that, I don't think Michigan State will move the ball very well. But I do worry that they're going to have some success with Childs running the football. And the question is Nebraska able to contain that enough to where, because they're not going to beat Nebraska with Childs running the ball. This is not Michael Vick.
Yeah.
But they can hurt them, and they can keep drives alive to where they do beat them.
Yeah, those high leverage downs, that's where they can gain an edge
Yep.
and move a critical third down late in the game, and if it's still tight. We'll talk more about this matchup and give you our matchups to watch, maybe the keys to the game, and our predictions as well. Plus, we'll tell you what Nebraska's athletic department did that is just so perfect. We'll talk more about that when we come back. It's the KLIN Husker Hour on a Husker game day here on KLIN.
At Momo P.
Talking with current and former Huskers and those that cover the Big Red. This is the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, let's finish up this matchup breakdown between Nebraska and Michigan State as we're almost about 5 hours till kickoff, 3 o'clock kickoff here on KLIN. You'll hear pregame coverage starting at 11 right here. As with Nebraska's defense, we just talked about how the pass rush has struggled. The defensive line in general has struggled. I think one of the things that they can do is something they did late in the Michigan game. When you've got early downs and when you know they're not passing, you aren't sure they're passing, get McCullough off the field a couple times and get a bigger body out there, because he was targeted in the run game against Michigan.
Yeah.
They ran to his side for both of those long touchdowns. Now, granted, the stunts that Nebraska did kind of took him out of the gaps as well, but they were certainly looking his way when they wanted to get physical. Yeah. And McCullough doesn't really hold up that well with that type of play. He is one of the best guys in terms of knifing through the backfield, that quick first step, getting a splash play like you talked about. Yeah. That part of his game is important, but try to save him for those obvious passing downs. You got to earn that right to get him on the field almost, but you can get somebody else who's more adept at setting that edge, because he just doesn't have it when it comes to that sort of stuff. And the one thing you don't want to do is let Michigan State get a little bit of downhill momentum running the ball.
Sure.
And then you really open up their pass game options. That's one thing they can do schematically to affect this game, I think.
Yeah, it's a question of how much does Michigan State want to run the football.
Yeah.
Because I think they want it, they're a Pac-12 team. And
Jonathan Smith, Oregon State.
Exactly. We were talking about this yesterday on the tailgate show that, this game feels like a Pac-12 game in a lot of ways, which is very, very strange, because the Michigan State stereotype is that of a team that had a giant running back, that had a pro-style drop back quarterback that couldn't run, very good wide receivers, and massive defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that you have to shift your thinking about a Big Ten game is very interesting. you mentioned maybe get McCullough off the field in obvious rundowns. What is an obvious rundown in this game?
Yeah.
Maybe this is a game where you let him feast a little bit. The other question is, who are you putting on the field for him? I mean, we saw Nebraska play some 4-man line, some 5-man line in the Michigan game to try and slow down the Michigan running attack. The fact of the matter is Nebraska's defensive line, the front line had its problems. And then the second line, it is a step down. And you even think of the promising people on that line. Cade Petchak, he's a freshman. He's small. So it's going to be an interesting balance of how do you control their run game with the knowledge that, one, they want to pass it primarily, and two, at least with your defensive linemen, you don't really have great personnel to do that. But yet, the important part is you want to get them one-dimensional. You want to get them thinking that they have to pass the football. So it's going to be an interesting balance with John Butler. And he mentioned this, that, if we're going to be more focused on stopping the run and pressuring the quarterback, we're going to give up something in the pass game. I think there's enough margin for error, both with how well they have covered and also the personnel they have back there, that they can give a little in pass coverage to try and slow down the run and try to be a little tougher in pressuring the quarterback.
A couple things we haven't talked about at all yet today is a couple of things that have frankly held Nebraska back the last couple of years. It's turnovers and special teams.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Nebraska is +4 in turnover margin. They average +1 per game, 6 giveaways to two giveaways compared to 6 takeaways, 4 each on either side for Michigan State. So they're even right now. So if you can have an edge by 1, maybe even 2 against the Spartans, that'll help. And then special teams wise, Nebraska has been excellent, frankly, in special teams. Really, the only black mark on their ledger is that missed field goal on the second drive of the game against against Michigan. Mm-hmm. So you're taking care of the football. You are not making back-breaking mistakes in special teams, and frankly, they're at times a strength for you. Cunanan has shown the ability to hit a long-range kick. You've obviously liked what you've seen from Archie Wilson in terms of pinning teams. Folks aren't going to be able to block it because they don't know which way he's going to run. So all that leads me to say you should be pretty confident if you're Nebraska going into this game with some of the matchups on offense and defense. Yeah, you are probably concerned about some things, but I think the intangibles, special teams, turnovers, that part of it is in your favor today as well.
Well, yeah, and think about this series. Michigan State has dominated special teams the last couple of matchups. So that's been a real advantage for them in winning. And, the big win for Nebraska in this series was the 9-6 win in the snow with Barrett Pickering early in Scott Frost's tenure. Yeah. I think Michigan State's really good in special teams for their own right, but I think it's maybe a draw, if not maybe a slight advantage for Michigan State. The bottom line is you don't feel like Nebraska is going to lose this thing because their special teams aren't good enough. Archie Wilson's done the job. The kickoff issue seemingly has been resolved by having Cunanan kick off. Field goals are solid. They've even gotten a little something in the return game. So you do feel like special teams, you're going to be able to at least, if not play it to a draw, get it close enough to where your other advantages can take over.
Yeah, very true. Let's one more thing before we get to the break and finish this up. Red zone offense, I think, is going to be key for Nebraska. Can they finally break through? That'll be one to watch. Let's get our score predictions right here before we head to our last segment. What do you got?
31-20, good guys. I think Nebraska will be able to move the ball. I'm a little worried about Michigan State's ability to move the ball, but I think, if this thing turns into a shootout, long as Dylan Ryle is doing okay and out there, they'll be okay. Nebraska has the edge in quarterback.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. I got 31-27, extra touchdown for Michigan State. Not sure if that's close all the way or if they get one late, but I think we're on the same page. Both of us think Nebraska gets it done. Both of us, 31-20, that's 11. Depending on where you're looking, that might be on the line.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't think they cover, but we'll see.
I don't either. 11 and a half feels way big.
It was pretty
especially
big.
in the Big Ten.
Agreed. All right. Back with our facilities hat tip to Nebraska athletics when we come back here and wrap things up on Husker Hour.
You're listening to the KLIN Husker Hour. Executive Travel Talk is next on 1499.3 KLIN. Your Saturday morning source for everything Huskers is right here. You're listening to the KLIN Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 K.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret, people. I'm wearing a hat today that tips this away if you're watching on the StreamYard. If you put Herbie on anything, I'm in. All right? Especially the ones that they've kind of refreshed and cleaned up and modernized, and they made them for all the sports. And wouldn't you know it, this week, they put basketball Herbie on the floor above the state of Nebraska outline on Pinnacle Bank Arena's parquet. I mean, you can't do it better than that.
I am a lone dissenting voice in this.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no.
First the black jerseys and now this.
I'm an uber traditionalist. I thought they got the floor right the first time at PBA with the N and the state of Nebraska. I will say basketball Herbie center court is an improvement.
Yeah.
The over Huskers. I don't like the blobby script Huskers. I would be cool with basketball Herbie kind of on the wings, you know.
Okay.
So I don't hate it.
All right.
I would prefer the N. It does look pretty sweet though.
Oh, it does. It's absolutely beautiful. Also beautiful, Nebraska just ripping Penn State to shreds in volleyball. They're back in action again tonight. They're at Rutgers. That's a 6 o'clock first serve, 5 o'clock pregame on B107.3. Right here on KLIN. An hour from now, you'll hear pregame for football on Huskers Radio Network before 3 o'clock kickoff against Michigan State. Thank you very much to Luke Mullin, Kenny Larrabee, Nate Rohr. I'm Cole Stukenholtz. Nebraska-Michigan State, Game 5. Here we go. Let's see what happens. Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.